Good evening, friends. I welcome Mr. C.A. Shashank Ajit Mehta. He is qualified as a chartered accountant in 2017 and also cleared LLB in 2021. He is a proprietor of Shashank Mehta and Associates and also the associates with the DHG Legal and BNC and Associates. His core working area is income tax litigations, drafting, representation, and advisory. His other activities includes content writer, blog, and summarizing the jurisdictional pronouncements, contributing to the article in journal of various forms like ICAI, CTC, and etc. He is a speaker at the various seminars organized by the CA Circle of ICAI and professional forums like CTC, BCA, and etc. He is a visiting faculty at KC College and Siddharth Law College and coaching institution for the CA curriculum. I welcome Mr. CA Shashank Ajit Mehta and invite Mr. MG Reddy for the momentum, please.
Sir, are we good to go? Yeah. Very good evening, one and all. Good evening. I can see there is some hunger in everyone right now, but I hope at least I'll be able to satisfy with the income tax return filing का जो hunger अभी start होने वाला है in the coming 1 month. I think this is the 4th or the 5th time I have been invited as a speaker to this esteemed forum, that is JB Nagar Study Circle. For that, I would extend my heartfelt gratitude to the entire team of JB Nagar Study Circle as well as the audience who has been, kind enough to entrust me with this opportunity to always be, among you all. Thank you so much for that. Today's session, we are going to discuss mainly about the income tax return filing, the changes which are brought in the ITR itself and the related amendments. In my today's presentation, the segments are divided into 4 categories. The first one would be the changes in the ITR itself, along with the relevant amendment which were brought in by Finance Act 2023. Both will go hand in hand. The second category will be a revision of certain important points which are required to be considered while filling up certain schedules or certain kind of line items in the ITRs. So that will be the second category. Third category would be certain, couple of important judicial pronouncements which will revolve around the ITRs. And the fourth category would be minor changes which are brought in Form 3CD, that is the tax audit report. Considering the time, we'll adjust, will be a little flexible. So taking the name of the Almighty, my parents, my gurus, and all the seniors in the profession, I beg your permission to start with today's session. Ravana ji, I think the presentation is not uploaded. Thank you so much. Okay, so there are topic goes like key changes and amendment relevant for filing the ITRs and tax audit reports of assessment year 24-25. If I talk about the notifications, the forms were notified well before time. It was almost in the month of December, at the end of the December, and in January, almost all the forms were at least notified. And I think presently most of the utilities are out, whether offline, online, you are able to at least fill up the ITRs. If I have to talk about the eligibility conditions as to which ITR will apply to which kind of assessees, there is no change from last 2 years. It is as it is. There is no amendment made in rule number 12. Apart from section 139, you also need to consider the 7th proviso. Now, there are certain scenarios which are covered in 7th proviso, according to which even if your total income is less than the basic exemption limit, even then you are required to file the ITR irrespective of your total income. So while before filing the ITR, if you are saying that even the income is less than 2.5 lakhs or the applicable exemption limit, still just consider the points which are there in the 7th proviso. Certain scenarios are there. If I have to start with the changes in the ITR, let us first start with the general schedule, schedule general. In this particular schedule, there is one more line item inserted, that is you are required to provide your legal entity identifier number. This is a kind of global concept wherein the trade parties are identified by way of this unique code which is assigned by the RBI. So there is a mandate by the RBI that whenever your transaction, any business transactions across the globe crosses in a particular transaction, if it crosses rupees 50 crore, then you are required to mention that LEI number in your payment transactions. Even in NEFT RTGS, you have this line item. So now this particular line item has also been inserted in the ITR forms in cases where the refunds are exceeding rupees 50 crores. So in case of clients where refunds are exceeding 50 crores, you are required to mention this LEI number. Second change, a very disclosure, I can say a type of disclosure change where you just have to mention what is the applicable due date to that particular assessee for filing the ITRs. Coming to presumptive taxation, our a kind of soft cornered section of the Income Tax Act. Up to last year in the ITRs, you are just required to report whether you are covered by tax audit report. I mean, you are applicable for tax audit or not. From this year, you are required to mention the clause under which the audit is applicable. Okay, clause A, B, C, D, E of section 44 AB. Apart from that, very important, you are required to mention the acknowledgement number of the tax audit report as well as the UDIN of the tax audit which has been filed. So this is a reporting change which is made in the ITR itself. Now coming to the threshold limit, we are all aware that prior to the amendment made by Finance Act 23, the threshold limit in case of business in order to opt for section 44 AD, that is presumptive taxation, was 2 crores, whereas in case of professionals it was 50 lakhs. Finance Act 23 has brought in an amendment, a beneficial amendment, stating that this threshold will be enhanced to 3 crores in case of business and 75 lakhs in case of professions, provided the amount or the aggregates of the amount received during the year in cash does not exceed 5% of the gross receipts. So basically, in cash, whatever you receive, that cash component, if it does not exceed 5% of the total turnover, then in that case, this enhanced limit of 3 crore and 75 lakhs will be applicable. Now, this word cash has been, further widened in the explanation, wherein they have stated that cash will also include any kind of check or draft which are not account pay. So even that is required to be included while computing this particular limit of 5%. Now let us understand an academic angle to this particular amendment which is made in Finance Act 23. This particular section says that if the amount or aggregate of the amount received during the previous year in cash does not exceed 5% of the total gross receipt of such previous year, then in that case, the enhanced limit of 3 crore and 75 lakhs as the case may will be applicable. Now I have got an example, an academic question. So for example, I have my firm, a proprietorship firm. My turnover from my regular services, my professional services is 60 lakhs. Apart from that, within that 60 lakhs, I have received 2,90,000 in cash. All the balance payment has been received in my bank account, by permissible modes. But 2,90,000 rupees I have received in cash out of this 60 lakh rupees. Now, apart from this 60 lakh rupees, I have sold my computers. The computers in my office, I have sold it and I have realized rupees 20,000 in cash from that particular, the person to whom I have sold. Now, if you see this particular example, my professional receipts total 60 lakh, that is my turnover as of now. Now, 2,90,000 is the amount of professional fees I have received in cash, and 20,000 is the amount of, the proceeds from fixed assets. Now, my question over here is whether while computing the 5% category, whether I have to, the limit will be the amount will be considered as 2,90,000 or 3,10,000. If we go by the literal interpretation, that is this amendment which has been brought in, it particularly says that provided in case of an assessee where the amount or the aggregate amount received during the previous year in cash does not exceed 5%. So yes, definitely I agree with you. If we go by literal interpretation, this amount will be 3,10,000 while computing this 5% limit, because here in this particular proviso, it nowhere says that amount should be only from your business or that particular profession. So if we go by this example, I am disqualified. I'll not be able to opt for presumptive taxation if we go by literal interpretation. However, this is my personal opinion that this particular section 44 AD or section 44 ADA, it requires purposive interpretation, it requires a beneficial interpretation. The entire section talks only about two things, that is a turnover and a specified percentage of profit to it. So if the entire scheme of this taxation has nothing to do with any of my balance sheet part, then in that case a purposive interpretation should be given, and this limit of 2,90,000 should be considered for the purpose of this section instead of taking it as 3,10,000. This is my personal opinion. Okay, because the entire section, if you see, it revolves only around the profitability and the turnover and nothing beyond that. So the scheme of the section has to be considered while giving a purposive interpretation to this particular section. But yes, by literal interpretation in this particular example, the assessee is disqualified. Now just let us see how the forms functions. I'm not trying to interpret my law as per the forms, but just let us go through how the forms is, they have formulated this particular form. If you see, the first part is the line items for section 44 AD, the second part is for section 44 ADA. We are in the second part. So here they are first trying to ask what is your gross receipt. So that is what you are required to mention over here. And then you are required to give a breakup of that gross receipts. So that breakup of the gross receipt will be what is the amount after the gross receipt you have received in cash, and the balance amount which is received by any banking mode or any other permissible mode. So this is how you are required to give the breakup. Now, in our example, if we see my turnover or gross receipt is 60 lakh, my the sale proceed out of sale of computers is 20,000. Now question arises whether my gross receipt is 60 lakh 20,000 or 60 lakhs only. Definitely yes. If you refer to the guidance note on tax audit, para 5.11, clause number Roman 6, it specifically says that while computing the turnover, any kind of proceeds out of sale, sale of fixed asset is required to be excluded. It is not required to be included in the turnover. So considering the guidance note, my turnover would be 60 lakhs only. So now here when I write 60 lakhs in the forms, it will ask me breakup only of that 60 lakh. 60 lakh में से आपका cash में कितना आया और bank में कितना आया. So going by that, my answer would be by 2,90,000 is in cash and the other amount is by banking modes. So automatically, according to me, even form is permitting कि भाई आप लोग 3 lakh 10 to consider मत करो, it will be 2 lakh 90,000. Okay, but yes, by literal interpretation, definitely I am disqualified. Now, if we refer to the disclosures for startups, as we all know, the startups, eligible startups are given exemption, tax holidays for certain years. Yes, sir.
If there is some renters of previous year, so will it be counted like 2,90,000 and 1 lakh debtor of last year, but in cash it will become 390.
See, amount received,
In cash.
you are saying you have debtors of last year, this year you are receiving. According to me, sir, the section nowhere says that it is only of that particular year का turnover देखना है. It is like इस साल में जितना भी मिला उसको ऐड करो. So in my opinion, by literal interpretation, yes, it will be disqualified. It is like amount received during the year. So whatever amount you receive during the year, it is as good as following cash system. कि भाई आपको पूरे साल में ये टाइम में कितना पैसा आया, irrespective of its year of actual accrual. Sorry, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. There are two aspects to this. See, my opinion over here is there are two different aspects which we are considering. The first is just an eligibility whether I will be covered by 44 AD or not. That is the first part. And second part comes कि भाई मुझे वो 44 AD का computation करना है. Now first of all, when I am looking at the eligibility, वहां पे गवर्नमेंट ने बोला है कि भाई तुम लोग का 2 crore का टर्नओवर होना चाहिए. वो एक पहला कंडीशन देखो. अगर आपको एनहांस लिमिट चाहिए, देन आपका कैश को रिस्ट्रिक्ट करो. Okay, so that is the first criteria. Here, in my opinion, we cannot go beyond that कि भाई मेरा टर्नओवर इस साल का है या किसी और साल का है. You are just required to see कि भाई उस साल में मुझे कैश कितना मिला. Okay, once I am qualified to opt in for section 44 AD, then comes the question कि भाई उस टर्नओवर को मैं इस साल का गिनूंगा या फिर it will be considered of last year or not. This is my personal opinion.
For 44 ADA, what should we mention? Whether books of account are required to be maintained? Such PCs are required to maintain under 44 AA.
Yes, sir.
ADA permits non-maintenance books of account.
Yes, sir.
These prima facie proof uncertainty, how can we report in the IT?
See, if you refer, sir, there is CBDT FAQs on the portal, e-filing portal. In that CBDT FAQ, they have specifically mentioned that once you opt for section 44 AD, that is with respect to 44 AD, I'm speaking, not 44 AD, but you can draw the analogy. There they have specifically mentioned that once you opt for 44 AD, you are not required to maintain books of accounts.
Right.
Okay, so drawing the analogy from that 44 AD जो FAQ दिया हुआ है, I can say while reporting in the ITR, okay, if you really not mention, maintain your books of accounts, okay, then definitely you can write no. But my personal opinion over here is that even if you mention yes, that you have maintained books of accounts and you go by presumptive taxation, then government cannot hold you कि नहीं आपको books of account दिखाना ही पड़ेगा, or you have to go by that only. Okay, but yes, if you ask me, in the CBDT portal itself in the FAQ, they have mentioned that you are not required to maintain books of account. You can accordingly answer no in that. That is what is there on the CBDT portal. Yes, but I agree these are completely two different things. But if you go by, once you go by 44 ADA, it will override section 44 AA.
But in the form, you have to mention that capital account, debtor, creditor, and all those.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Possible to.
Any businessman would have some idea कि भाई मुझे कितना लेना है कितना देना है. Be it a chartered accountant or be it a very layman person, at least he will have an idea कि मेरा इससे बाकी है, मेरा उससे लेना है, मुझे उसको देना है. So that is what is required to be reported. Definitely, sir.
So under GST, we are asking you to maintain books of account.
Sorry, sir.
Hello, under GST, you are supposed to maintain books of account.
Sir, that is something which is required to be reconciled by the ministry, sir.
Go ahead.
So if we come to the startup again, they are given tax holidays for certain years. There is a disclosure requirement now in the ITR to mention certain additional details. This table was not there earlier. Now you are required to mention the certificate number, the AY from which they started claiming that deduction, that is only allowed for 3 years, and what was the amount which they already claimed as deduction. So this new table has been inserted. Section 10AA, that is for units established in SEZ. If you refer to EOU, section 10B, there was already a condition that you will get tax holiday, tax exemption, provided that the sales proceeds are realized within a period of 6 months from the end of the particular financial year. This particular condition was not there up to last year in section 10AA. They have now inserted this particular condition by Finance Act 23 and provided that yes, you are required to bring in that export proceed within 6 months from the end of the financial year. Now, in case it is very much possible कि भाई 6 महीने के अंदर नहीं आया पैसा, उसके बाद आया. That for that also they have made a remedy that they have provided. They have inserted new subsection 11A in section 155 whereby you are required to apply to the AO कि भाई ये proceeds अभी आ गया है, so rectify my assessment, rectify my intimation as the case may be, and allow me that particular exemption. Okay, and it is also possible कि भाई आप revised return file कर सकते हो at least till December. उसके पहले अगर आ जाता है, then you can also go for revised filing. But after beyond that 31st of December, definitely you have to apply to the assessing officer under section 155 subsection 11 capital A. Now we have seen that there are several sections, section 115BA, 115BAB, 115BAA, that is, kind of alternate taxation scheme in case of domestic companies. So tax benefit was given to certain kind of companies who were engaged in manufacturing. However, there were also certain societies who were engaged in manufacturing, but they are required to pay tax on the regular slab rate or the particular rate as the case may be. So there was a difference in taxation scheme, even though predominantly both this, whether it is a company or a society, they were engaged in similar kind of activity, that is manufacturing. So now this new section was inserted in Finance Act 23 to provide that even certain kind of societies will be given this concessional rate of taxation benefit, that is of 15%, provided that they satisfy various conditions which are mentioned in this particular section. Okay, so the conditions under this sections are again very much similar to section 115BAB, which is for the manufacturing companies, domestic manufacturing companies, 115BAA, 115BA, similar conditions. So have to take care of this. Scope of section 28 clause 4 has been widened. This is also one of the very important amendment which was made in Finance Act 23. So earlier, before Finance Act 23, clause 4 of section 28 stated that any value of benefit or perquisite, whether convertible into money or not, that was being taxed as your business income. So the phrasing of this particular section was benefits or perquisite, whether convertible into money or not. So Honorable Supreme Court in the case of Mahindra and Mahindra interpreted this particular line, whether convertible into money or not. Honorable Supreme Court stated that it is written that it is something which is whether convertible into money or not. So predominantly it has to be something which is not money. It has to be something which is in kind. So in this particular case of Mahindra and Mahindra, there was waiver of loan. So department said that it's a benefit to the business because there is waiver of loan. Let us tax it under section 28 clause 4. Honorable Supreme Court said, yes, it is a waiver. Definitely there is a benefit, but it is a benefit which is already in cash. Whereas the section says that benefit whether convertible into money or not. So predominantly it has to be something which is not money, but here it was already a money. So this particular judgment is a celebrated judgment which was used by many assessees, and the loans which were waived off were not being taxed. So by Finance Act 23, they have now brought in an amendment saying that irrespective of your type of the benefit or perquisite, whether it is in cash, whether it is in kind, partly in cash, partly in kind, whatever, everything will be covered now under 28(4). So whenever now if there is any kind of waiver of loan, there are several other judgments also wherein this Supreme Court judgment was used
wherever there was something which was already in kind. Say, for example, discount on redemption of FCCB, share application money which is written back. So there are decisions which supported the assessee कि भाई ये सब income है, benefit भी हुआ है, but because it is something which was already in cash, उसको यहाँ पे tax नहीं हो सकता. It cannot be taxed here at least. Okay, so now it will be covered, and accordingly in this year's ITR, if there is any kind of such transactions, you will have to take care of it. Oh, okay. So now we come to the deduction on actual payment of MSME. I don't think I require any explanation. This particular stat does not require any explanation because we all have done our own PhD on this particular topic. Okay, everyone, it's so contradictory and things are so messed up here that I think we can have a 3-hour session on this. But yes, in the ITRs, if you refer to the changes made in the ITR, they have given 2 line items. One is for disallowance and second is for allowance. Disallowance is for the case where you have not made the payment within that prescribed limit. So here you have to mention कि भाई इतना मेरा disallowance है. And secondly, the payment you will be allowed that deduction in the year of payment. So जिस साल में आपने payment किया है उस साल के ITR के लिए they have also inserted this line item, the second one, wherein you are required to report the amount which will be allowed as deduction, which was earlier disallowed. Okay, so this changes in the ITR. This is something which is going to take very time. In case of ITR 5, there is a separate line item given in the ITR itself, wherein you are required to report if you are a MSME dealer or not. I mean, registered under MSME or not. So this line item is only in ITR 5 as of now. You are required to mention your MSME registration number here. Again, a very important amendment which was made in Finance Act 23, a very small amendment but having a very wide repercussion. While computing the capital gains, we are required to first determine what is our FEOC, and after that we are required to reduce the cost of acquisition under section 48. Now, there is this celebrated judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in case of BC Srinivas Setty, wherein it was held that whenever the cost of acquisition is not determinable or is not ascertainable, in such cases, the computation mechanism of section 48 fails. And accordingly, once the computation mechanism itself fails, you are not able to arrive at any kind of capital gain ka figure, whether gain or loss, whatever it is. So in that case, no capital gain taxation can be levied, because you are not able to determine what is your capital gains. If you are not able to determine what is your capital gains, how can you tax it? So this was a judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in case of BC Srinivas Setty. Now thereafter what happened? If we refer to Honorable Bombay High Court judgment in case of Sambhajinagar Cooperative Society, there was a case, it's a very common case in many cases. 1991, there was change in the DCR rules. The plots were assigned additional FSIs, TDRs, which were transferable. And there were many societies who had transferred that additional FSI or a TDR which was assigned to them to some third party or to some other developer for crores of rupees. Now, in that case, is also same issue arose. That what is the cost of acquisition of this additional TDR or FSI which was assigned to you by way of change in the DCR rules? So in that case also, department was not able to assign any cost to that particular rights. They were saying that cost will be nil. However, the assessee argued, how can it be nil? When I buy a piece of land or when I buy a piece of property, I don't pay for the tangible part. I pay for everything. It is whenever I'm acquiring a property, I'm acquiring bundle of rights against it. It's not just property. It will be consisting that property as well as the rights which are attached to that property, whether presently or in future. So this was the argument of the assessees. The Honorable Bombay High Court held that this is the case where cost of acquisition is unascertainable. You cannot ascertain what is the cost of that additional FSI or TDR you have transferred. So applying the decision of Honorable Supreme Court in BC Srinivas Setty, all these transactions were not being subject to tax, even though there were heavy amount of capital gains, or I can say amount which were received by the assessees in such cases, especially in case of real estate. So in order to curb this kind of transaction, they have made a very small but vital amendment in section 55. Okay, they now say that cost of acquisition. Okay, earlier there was, there were certain kind of rights which were specifically mentioned. Like if you see, tenancy rights, stage carriage permits, loom hours. In all those cases, in tenancy right, we all know that cost of acquisition has to be considered nil by law only. But this was not with respect to any other right. So now they have inserted these three words or any other rights. Okay, so now this any other right is a very broad term. It can cover everything. Okay, any kind of right, whatever you term it, it can be covered over here. Same way in case of business also, it has now inserted this particular word, any other intangible asset. So there was specified intangible asset, but now it says any other intangible asset also. So now the assessee cannot plead ki bhai iska cost unascertainable hai. If it is unascertainable, then you have to take it as nil, and nil is a figure. Okay, so this is how this small amendment will make a huge impact, especially in tax planning for real estates. Okay, so yeah, again a very important amendment. Double deduction of interest. This was a very kind of funny amendment, I can say. Earlier, what used to happen was people used to acquire property on loan. So cost of acquisition, say for example 1 crore. I've taken loan on it. I'm paying interest on it. So what used to happen was कि मैं loan का जो amount की जो principal के ऊपर जो interest दे रहा हूँ, that I was claiming every year, under section 24B, that interest amount I was claiming. Then after, say for example, after XYZ years, I'm selling of that property. At that point of time, when I'm required to determine of my cost of acquisition, what I was doing was मेरा जो principal, I mean the cost of acquisition as per the agreement है, वो तो मैं ले ही रहा था. I was also capitalizing every year का interest which I was paying every year. So here the question came कि भाई तुम 24B में भी ले रहे हो, पहले तो every year, and thereafter while selling of that property you are also claiming it as your cost of acquisition by capitalizing it. Okay, so there is a double deduction, and fortunately, or I don't know, for department it is unfortunate, but there are tribunal decisions which says that this double deduction is permissible because it is not impermissible by law. Okay, so there are these decisions which says that because the law does not say कि भाई आप double deduction नहीं ले सकते, so it will be allowed because every year आपने 24B में भी claim किया, and now while selling of that property you add it to your cost also, you will get it as a cost of acquisition. So these things were happening. There are cases which were in favor of assessee. In order to curb this practice, we have now provided in section 48 that if at all you have claimed any amount of interest, you have claimed, very important, the word is claimed, under section 24B or under chapter 6A, even under chapter 6A for affordable housing, there are interest amount which can be claimed as deduction, section 80EE, section 80E, etc., etc. So if you have already claimed any of your interest amount under 24B or under chapter 6A, then you cannot ultimately capitalize it while selling of that particular property. So this amendment has been brought in now. So you have to accordingly take care.
In case where the interest was 5 lakhs, 32 lakhs was allowed. So balance.
Definitely, yes, sir. By all means. That is the reason why I stressed on that claim. Whatever you are claiming it. Apart from that, definitely you can capitalize it. The same question sir asked. Deduction of interest about 2 lakh rupees. Yes, it can be capitalized. There is no problem in that. Ceiling limit on deduction under section 54 and 54F, and another, I can say, a very well-known amendment which was made in Finance Act 23. Before that, there was no ceiling limit to claim any kind of exemption or deduction under section 54 or 54F. Okay, irrespective of your capital gains, yes, you were allowed that amount of deduction provided you have made that investment, obviously. Okay, but there was no ceiling limit to the threshold. Now they have provided a simple ceiling limit in both of this section that irrespective of your amount of investment, irrespective of the amount you invest in your capital gain account scheme, whatever, the maximum amount of deduction or allowance under this particular section will be restricted to rupees 10 crores. So that is required to be considered while filing the ITRs for tax planning especially. Again, a disclosure requirement for capital gain account scheme. You are required to now report the date on which you have made deposit. Again, it will be linked with that particular time limit to deposit, to do the the deposit. Account number, IFSC, all these are additional disclosures with respect to the capital gain account scheme. Taxability of a debt fund. This is also another section. I can say a good amendment which was made in section 50AA in order to avoid, kind of evasion of tax. What used to happen? Say for example, if we take up any regular derivative transaction, if I am earning profit on any kind of regular derivative transaction, I will have to pay tax on that as per my applicable slab rate. Say for example, 30%, 20%, whatever it is. Same way, in case of debentures, whatever interest I receive from the debentures, it will be taxed under IFOS, and the tax rate would be the applicable slab rate or whatever as the case may be. Now, on account of dynamics in the capital market, on account of volatility, or I can say, the new kind of schemes and products which are coming in nowadays, certain kind of mutual funds or certain kind of investment banker framed certain schemes which were predominantly, something which was linked or which derived its own value from some other securities. Say for example, market linked debentures or specified mutual fund where, the equity investment is maximum up to 35%. That is more or less, I can say, debt oriented funds. So these kind of schemes, certain kind of schemes, they were in the nature of, kind of derivative, because market linked debenture, if you see, that market linked debenture is deriving its own value from some other securities. Same way, this debt oriented, certain kind of specified mutual fund, what used to happen was they were not paying interest or any kind of proceed every year. Everything was accumulated and was paid at the end, as if the valuation of that unit will go up by that particular amount. So what used to happen was, as per the Securities Act, all this kind of specified securities were considered as a regular securities, and these particular securities were no longer being termed as derivative transaction because it will not fall within the definition of derivatives. So the high net worth individual used this kind of structuring in order to avoid their regular tax bracket, okay, and go into capital gains, because once it becomes securities, it becomes your regular capital asset, and if you are holding it for more than 36 months, because it is debt oriented and other stuff, okay, so 12 months will not apply, 24 months and 36 months as the case may be. Okay, in that particular case, the tax rate was only 20%. So they were somewhat saving a lot of tax by, devising their entire tax planning and investing in this kind of schemes. Okay, with this particular background, the ministry came up with this particular amendment saying that these two types of securities or these two type of, asset, if you are selling it, transferring it, redemption is happening, maturity is happening, whatever, the gain which arise out of that particular asset will be deemed to be gain from short-term capital asset. Once it is considered as short-term capital gains, naturally it will be taxed at slab rate, because 111A will not apply here. It is applicable only in case of equity shares and equity oriented mutual funds. So this is the way they have, regularized this particular aspect and brought into the regular taxation scheme. Now the question may arise, ki bhai, say for example, I am having this kind of securities from last 5 years. I have sold the securities today. मुझे capital gain हुआ, that will be deemed to be gain from short term capital asset. Yes, I don't mind, करो उसको. But now, say for example, वो जो capital gain हुआ, I am investing in some property, or I am investing in section 54 EC bond. Okay, whether will I get deduction under section 54F or section 54 EC? The answer is definitely yes. This is not as per law. This is not as per law. Definitely, we will derive our analogy from section 50. That is sale of depreciable asset. That is also similarly worded, wherein there is a deeming provision saying that the gains arising out of your depreciable asset will be deemed to be gain from short-term capital asset. Whereas, if you refer to section 54 or section 54F or section 54 EC, it only requires that gains arising out of long-term capital asset. So definitely this is a long-term capital asset, and gain arising is, out of long-term capital asset. Okay, so these both sections, section 48, read with section 50AA, is a separate code in itself. Section 54F and section 54 EC will operate in its own line. Definitely, yes, there will be capital gains, but when I seize this particular section, that is section 54 EC or section 54F, it does permit me, because that is gains which is coming out from long-term capital asset. It is not deemed that आपका ये capital asset जो है वो short term है. No, So deeming fiction is that gains will be considered as out of short-term capital asset. The short asset itself is not deemed to be short-term. Okay, so there are several judicial precedents in the context of section 50, which will apply even over here. It is my personal opinion. Just a minute, sir. Just a minute.
How will you accommodate internal income if you go to appreciable asset schedule?
Yes, sir. I agree.
So how will you go to?
Sir, in that particular case, ITR will not support all these things. Yes, in that case, sir, my opinion would be that you go by your normal ITR, file as the ITR flows, but make an application to the AO that I have filed this particular form with this particular liability or whatever. Okay, but this is under protest. Okay, this is under protest. I am claiming this particular deduction. Or if there is any other practical way out to, get your liability as zero, you do that, but along with that, you have to intimate to the AO कि भाई मैंने ऐसा किया हुआ है. Without intimation, it will be difficult. You will have to intimate it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. See, there are various aspects. Say, for example, even in section 44 JB, JAA, this issue arose when this Meht provisions were inserted, AMT provisions were inserted 2013. There are decisions which says that कि भाई अगर आपके प्रोजेक्ट का अप्रूवल बिफोर 1st of April 2013 मिल गया होता, okay, then in that case provisions of AMT will not apply. Now what happens in the forms में वो AMT automatic calculate करता है, liability आता है. There are various case laws on this. Okay, so now what those assessees are doing, form भर लेते हैं. Okay, they don't, there can be practical way out कि आप कहीं कैसे भी करके liability zero करो, या तो फिर आप liability pay करके या फिर defective return जाने दो. But along with that, make an application to the AO and to the CBDT कि भाई as per law I am permitted, but because of this form I am not able to go ahead. Okay, so there, yes, definitely, sir. This is a litigative area, but you cannot interpret law based on forms. Okay, you have to go by the law. If the law is permitting you, what is stopping? Not the form cannot stop you. That is my point. Definitely, litigation will be there. Definitely. There are several cases of even jurisdictional high court on this particular aspect that you can make to the application to the CBDT. CBDT will hear it. There is also a case law where High Court has himself stated कि भाई आप file करो return, जैसे जा रहा है ऐसे जाने दो, but it will be considered as under protest, and you make an application, rectification application to the AO. The decision name.
But normally the AO doesn't take any step because the CPC has not given the rights to use the.
Sir, you have to apply to the principal commissioner and CBDT under 119. But yeah, if the amount is substantial, definitely you will have to work on it. Definitely, yes. Coming from litigation background, sir, I focus more on this aspect. कि भाई लड़ना है तो लड़ सकते हो, ऐसा नहीं है कि फॉर्म नहीं बोल रहा तो अपन छोड़ देंगे. Definitely not. Why should you? Okay. Now coming to other sources, the changes made in IFOS. Section 56 subsection 2 clause Roman 7b earlier provided that where in case where you are issuing your shares of your company, it's a specified company that is generally called as private limited companies, okay, wherein public are not substantially interested. In case where the amount which you receive against the shares, if it is exceeding the face value as well as the fair market value of that particular shares, then whatever amount which you receive over and above that particular value will be considered as the income of that particular company under IFOS. But this particular taxation was applicable only when the receipts were received from a resident. Okay, so if a non-resident is paying over and above the FMV and the face value, then it was not being taxed anywhere. It was accepted. Now this amendment is made in the Finance Act 23 to provide that even amount which you receive from a non-resident, which is over and above your face value as well as the fair market value, okay, that amount will be taxed as IFOS. So the cases where the companies have issued share capital, the shares, and if you have received amount from non-resident, this particular amendment will be relevant. Taxation on online, gamings which are now developing at a very fast pace. There are, various apps coming on. There are various kind of platforms which are set up in order to, give a boost to the gaming industry in India. Earlier, we we already had this section 115B, okay, which provides for taxation in case of the winnings out of gaming, crossword puzzle, horse races, etc., etc. Okay, so this particular section is already there, section 115BB. However, they have now carved out certain kind of aspect from 115BB, that is the winning which you earn out of the online gaming. So that has been excluded, that has been carved out from section 115BB, and a new section has been inserted, that is section 115BBJ. It provides only for taxation of winnings out of your online category of winnings. So here in the ITR, yeah, it is taxed at 30%. The taxation is, the scheme is same. In the ITR, if you refer, there is a separate line item which is now inserted wherein you are required to report what is the amount of winning which you receive from this online category. This will be relevant especially in cases of youth, because Dream 11 and all the etc. apps are running on and many people are betting on that. Many people are receiving money from that. So in those kind of assessees, this particular line item will require to be properly filled up by the that particular assessee. Okay, so this new line item has been inserted for winnings out of online gamings. Now coming to taxation of insurance policy. This has always been a subject matter of confusion. Earlier, if you refer to 2003's Finance Act, it was very simple that any amount which you receive from insurance policies, it was considered as exempt under section 1010D. Thereafter, an amendment was made which provides that if at all the premium which you are paying for the policies, if the premium amount exceeds 10% or 20%, as the case may be, depending on the point of time when you are paying it. Okay, then in that case, if it exceeds 10 or 20% of the capital sum assured in a particular year, then proceeds from that particular policy, whatever you receive from the insurance policies, will be taxable. It will not be exempt. So that was an exclusion to the exemption. Thereafter, by Finance Act 21, a specific another condition was brought in only for unit-linked insurance policies. So what was that amendment? That amendment was that in case of unit-linked insurance policies, the first condition will apply कि by 10% या 20%, we'll refer to 20% only now, कि by 20% से ज़्यादा अगर आपका premium गया है for that particular policy of the sum assured, then it will be taxable, the proceeds will be taxable. And another condition which was required to be cumulatively fulfilled was कि by if there is only one ULIP and in the premium paid is more than 2,50,000, then proceeds from that particular ULIP will be taxable, it will not be exempt. However, it was always possible कि भाई अपन कम amount में अलग-अलग ULIPs ले लेंगे, okay, so that it is less than 2,50,000 naturally. So in order to curb that particular aspect also, they brought in this particular proviso saying that if at all there are multiple ULIPs, say for example 10 ULIPs, then the assessee will have a choice कि भाई आप उसको bundling करो, okay, bundle in such a way कि भाई कुछ policies, say for example there are 4 policies जिसका total premium मिला के हो रहा है less than 2.5 lakh, बाकी 6 का naturally it will go beyond 2.5 lakh. Overall, I'm saying total amount. So 4 policies, total aggregate amount of premium is, say for example 2,40,000 rupees. Then whatever proceeds are received for this particular 4 policies in future, okay, that will continue to remain exempt, but for the other 6 it will be taxable. Okay, so this was the amendment which was made in Finance Act 2021. Very important to maintain proper records here कि भाई किसको हमने यो क्लबिंग कर रहा है, किसको छोड़ रहा है, किसको एक्सक्लूड कर रहा है, किसको इंक्लूड कर रहा है, कभी किसका पैसा आ रहा है. There will be difference in timing also. So all these things are a bit, it's easy to understand this particular fact, but when we sit with the paper and pen, it will be something which will be very tedious. So this amendment was for ULIPs only, for by Finance Act 21. Now Finance Act 23 has covered even other kind of policies. Okay, all kind of policies. Now they have brought into this particular bracket and they have stated that if there is one single policy or a single policy ka premium, if it is exceeding 5 lakh rupees, then whatever proceeds you receive will be taxable. First condition to abhi bhi comply karna hi hai, 20% wala, that is still there. But in case where there are multiple policies and the amount is less than 50 lakhs, then you will accordingly club it कि भाई particular cluster को आप exempt के तौर पे आगे देखना चाहोगे तो वहां पे आपको exemption मिलेगा provided that amount aggregate is less than 5 lakhs every year, and for the rest of the policies it will be taxable. But definitely if you are receiving any amount on death of the person, then it will continue to remain exempt. वहां पे कुछ problem नहीं है. Only when you are surviving and you receive all this huge amount, this particular taxation angle will come into picture. This was basically to curb the practice of investment by way of the insurance policies. There are various schemes which are more in the form of investment rather than pure vanilla insurance policies. So in order to club this kind of practices, this particular amendment was made. So now if you have to refer to the changes made in the ITR with respect to this particular point, that is section 10D, the amendment which was made in Finance Act 23. So whatever amount you receive, okay, which is taxable, okay, that is required to be reported in the ITR. From that you will get the deduction of the premium which you have paid. Okay, so that will be allowed. The whatever premium you have paid, that will be allowed as deduction. The balance amount will be taxable. Okay, and that is required to be reported in your IFOS schedule. Now, certain other small changes which are made in the ITRs regarding first is regarding the donation which are made to the political parties. There is additional disclosure requirement made in this. Okay, you are required to mention the date of making the donation, what is the amount, then you have to give the bifurcation कि भाई आपने cash में कितना दिया है, बैंक से कितना दिया है. Okay, what is the IFSC code of that particular bank? What was the transaction reference number, etc. All these are additional requirements which are required to be given with respect to the donation made to the political parties. In case of deduction in the section 80U, they have provided another schedule, a separate schedule now, wherein you are required to give further information as to the nature of disability. 80U is for claiming disability allowances. You are required to give the details, the nature, as well as every 3 years that particular assessee is required to file that particular form. Okay, every 3 years they are required to file. So that acknowledgement number of form 10 IA is required to be given. UDID number is required to be given and the amount. So this is again a new schedule which has been inserted in ITR 2, 3 and 4. Now, a critical aspect, that is the new scheme, or I can say the by default scheme of taxation. I'll take some time to go a bit deeper into this. I have not covered the general aspect of section 115 BAC. If we refer to the history, we can see that up to assessment year 2021, there was only one scheme, that is, I can say the Finance Act. That is, I'll refer it to as the old scheme. You have to go by the Finance Act, जो भी tax bracket है, as per the Finance Act, the old scheme. Thereafter, from assessment year 21-22 to assessment year 23-24, that is what this particular 3 assessment year, there comes a new scheme. Okay, that is called as alternate taxation scheme or whatever. Again, section 115 BAC itself, subsection 1. Okay, so for the sake of simplicity, we will refer it to as version 1 of the new scheme. That is version 1. Here it was the case where by default you will stick to the Finance Act, but if you want to go for the new scheme, you have to opt in by filing form 10I, whatever it was. Okay, so I'm talking about version 1. So you have to opt for the new scheme. Okay, otherwise you will stay in the old scheme. Now, from this particular assessment year, that is assessment year 24-25, there comes the second version of the new scheme, again under section 115 BAC itself, subsection 1A. This particular scheme provides that, forget everything, this will be your by default, or I can say this will be your tax brackets which are given, the table is given in that section itself. Forget the Finance Act as of now. This you will be taxed as per this slab rate. 115 BAC subsection 1A. Then there is 115 BAC subsection 6, which provides that if you want to go to the Finance Act, you have to opt in for Finance Act by the prescribed manner in a prescribed way. Okay. So now if you refer to this particular scheme, that is version 2, it is something which is by default, वो उसका taxation by default ITR में आएगा या फिर आपके software में आएगा, even in the CPC, unless you opt in for the version, the old scheme. Version 1 is nowhere in picture from now. It will always be version 2 or the Finance Act, either of it. Now, I have only covered certain intricacies or certain distinguishing points, not the entire scheme. The very first one is, if you refer to the version 1 of the new scheme, it was applicable only for individuals and HUF. Whereas the version 2 is applicable for individual HUF, AOP, BOI as well as the AJP. It is whether it is resident, non-resident, it was even the earlier scheme, it was applicable to everyone. There is no age related slab rates here in the new scheme. Okay, so everything will be covered under one slab bracket only, and it will be applicable even to AOP, BOI as well as the AJP, which was not there in the version 1 scheme. Now, this is very important, or I can say distinguishing factor, okay, as to why you will get, reduced liability for in the version 2 scheme. That is with respect to the surcharge. So if you refer to the Finance Act, in that case, if your taxable income is more than 5 crores, then in that case, the surcharge rate is 37%, which is still there. Obviously, certain kind of income like capital gains from shares, etc., that is restricted to lower amounts. However, otherwise, your income is, taxed as per your slab rate plus surcharge of 37%. But under the version 2 scheme, they have restricted it to 25%. So maximum surcharge under the version 2 scheme, irrespective of your total income, even if it is more than 5 crore, then also the maximum surcharge will be 25%. So, there is net saving of 12% of the surcharge amount over here. Again, if you are opting in for, if you are going by the new scheme, okay, then the provisions of AMT will not apply to the version 2 scheme. And naturally, if you have brought forward AMT credit, that will also lapse. That will go hand in hand naturally. But AMT provision will at least not apply. Now, again, something which is academic, but again, something which is interesting.
Sir, sorry, but for opting for old scheme, what is time limit and when to apply?
Still we'll go to that. I have covered it. Now, a very small thing, but of a legal interest. Section 87A, that is rebate. Under the Finance Act, if you go by the Finance Act, if your taxable total income is up to rupees 5 lakh, then you will get rebate of rupees 12,500 rupees. Okay, not more than that, 12,500 rupees if your total income is up to rupees 5 lakh. Section 87A specifically mentions that it will be applicable, the rebate will be allowed only in case of individual and that too who is resident. So only individual and that too is resident. So this is with respect to the Finance Act, that is the old scheme. Now, if we refer to the version 2, that is our new scheme, or I can say by default scheme. Here, they are offering you rebate of rupees 25,000 provided your total income is up to rupees 7 lakhs. So 7 lakh tak ka total income hai, then our rebate will be, going up to 25,000 rupees. Now, the question here is, the proviso, that is the second part of this particular amendment, the amendment which is made, it says that this particular rebate will be applicable where the total income of the assessee is chargeable to tax under subsection 1A of section 115 BAC. Now, if we go to section 115 BAC subsection 1A, it says that it will be applicable to individual HUF, AOP, BOI, AJP. This is the rebate provision. Here they say that this rebate of 25,000 will be allowed to the assessee whose income is chargeable to tax under section 115 BAC subsection 1A. Now my question over here is whether if I am a say for example, if I am a HUF or I am a AOP, whether will I get the rebate or not? Yes, precisely. So yes. Yeah. So definitely, generally we go by the forms. We are not completely aware of all these things. But if we refer, sometimes it creates this confusion कि भाई ये यहाँ पे तो लिखा है कि if your income is chargeable under 115 BSc 1A, then you will get the rebate. और 115 BSc 1A के अंदर तो सब लोग हैं. Be it individual, HUF, AOP, BO, everything. But here again the law of jurisprudence will come in picture. You have to read the proviso with the main part. The main part covers only a resident individual, that's it. So the proviso cannot expand its own limit beyond the limits of the main provision. So again, this particular rebate is applicable only in case of individual and HUF. Though by reading just the proviso, it may appear कि भाई ये तो सबको apply होना चाहिए. Okay. Now, what are certain additional allowances which are there in version 2 scheme, which was not there earlier? So very first one, very important for the salaried class. Under the version 1 scheme, this standard deduction under section 16 clause 2 was not allowed, 50,000 rupees, which is now allowed in the version 2 scheme. This is also playing a very vital role why your tax liability is coming low in the version 2 scheme. Same way, deduction, certain deduction which are allowed, which are otherwise not allowed at all, but यहाँ पे जो allow होता है, that is, contribution made to the Agniveer Corpus Fund 80 CC8 subsection 2. Even deduction under section 57 clause 2A, that is for family pension. That's very small amount, but it was not earlier allowed, which is now under version 2. Under version 1, all these were not allowed. Okay, so these are certain additional, I can say, carve out points for version 2. Now, coming to the depreciation part, very important again. I'll just explain it with the help of an example. If you read this particular section, it clearly says that the additional depreciation which is there under section 32. The additional depreciation क्यों आया? आपने नया plant and machinery लिया, तो over and above your regular depreciation, you will get 20% additional depreciation. Okay, so that section clearly specifies that you will not get that additional depreciation. Regular depreciation मिलेगा, additional 20% वाला नहीं मिलेगा. However, there are, a case that there can be a case, say for example, in financial year 22-23. In, say for example, in the month of February 23, I have acquired a new plant and machinery. Okay, और उस time पे मैंने regular depreciation लिया as well as additional depreciation लिया, but additional depreciation will be restricted to 50% because my asset is not put to use for more than 180 to 80 days. Okay, so the balance 10% will be allowed to me as per the as per the Income Tax Act in the subsequent year. That is this particular assessment year. So now in this year, okay, I have this balance depreciation which is, ought to be allowed to me in this year as a deduction from my profit. However, this section says no, you will not be allowed. Okay, any kind of new additional depreciation, but there is a beneficial proviso which says that अगर आपका brought forward कोई depreciation है जो unclaimed है with respect to that additional depreciation, that you cannot directly claim from your profit, but you can add it to your WDV. Okay, so that balance amount का जो भी depreciation बाकी है, you will not get deduction as it is from your profit, but you can add it to your WDV. Accordingly, आपका WDV बढ़ेगा, and over the years you will gradually get that particular deduction. Okay, so in the ITR forms, they have inserted this new line item saying that whatever amount of adjustment you want to do with respect to that additional depreciation claim, the balance claim is required to be added to this particular schedule, that is in schedule DPM. Same reporting requirement is also there in tax audit report. वहां पे भी auditor को बताना है कि भाई इतना addition हुआ है, in the WDV. Now this is I can say a general chart, not a conclusive chart, but just a chart to directly say कि भाई किसको कौन से income के group के कौन सा scheme ज़्यादा beneficial होगा, the old one or the new one. Okay, based on the taxable amount and the eligible deduction which are otherwise allowed under the old scheme. Now we will refer to the general analysis which I have written at the bottom. This is also general analysis, not a conclusive one. It has to be tested everywhere. But in general, whenever if there is an assessee who has no deduction which is otherwise allowable under ATC or anywhere else under the Finance Act, then in that particular case, generally version 2 will be more beneficial. Same way, if there is some assessee who has only claim under ATC, that is 1,50,000, maximum 1,50,000 तक का अगर claim है किसी के पास, in such cases also generally version 2 will be more beneficial generally. Then the third category, if there is an assessee who has ATC, ATD, that is a mediclaim, 15,000, 25,000, 50,000 as the case may be, and अगर उसका total income, if it is exceeding 8,25,000, now this is something which is purely mathematics. Okay, there is nothing such thing in law. So 8,25,000 से ज़्यादा total income जा रहा है और ये सारे deduction है ATC and ATD. Then in that case also version 2 will be more beneficial. If it is less than 8,25,000, then शायद Finance Act will be more beneficial. But a third category where the assessee has ATC, ATD as well as 24B. So that is your interest on housing loan, okay, 2 lakh rupees. If all these three are present, then most likely it is possible that आपको Finance Act will be more beneficial. Okay, so accordingly, in prompt अगर किसी का query आता है, then you just can have this particular thought process in the mind. Now, this is a comparable table as to what was, allowed under the old scheme, that is under the Finance Act, and what is allowed under the new scheme, that is version 2. So if you refer to the first one, that is salary deduction 50,000, it is allowed under both Finance Act as well as the new scheme. Okay, under version 1 scheme, this was not allowed. 50,000 was not allowed. Now, apart from that, everything else is not allowed. So that is your LTA, HRA. The people, salaried class people, they struggle a lot for HRA. They will do all sort of affidavit. They'll make all sort of agreement. Mummy ko rent de, usko rent de, ye karo, wo kare. If they are going by version 2, then ye sab nahi karna hai, kuch bhi. Okay, a very important point. Yes, again 10, 14, 10, 17, entertainment allowance in case of central government employees, profession tax, small amount, all these things will not be allowed. Very important part, interest on housing loan, that is your SOP 24B, even that would not be allowed under the version 2, 2 lakh rupees. Okay, so that is important part. Again, very important part, entire chapter 6A, nothing is allowed except for two things. One is the contribution made to the Agniveer Corpus Fund, and second one is the NPS under section 80 CCD subsection 2. That is for the government employees. Okay. Yes. That is for the business class. Yes. The new employment. Yeah. So this is also one of the very distinguishing factors. कि भाई जो पहले allowed था वो अभी नहीं होगा. Then setting up of losses under IFHP. So under IFHP already 3 years back there was an amendment. The maximum maximum loss which you can set off. Okay, of the losses from house properties rupees 2 lakh. Balance you have to carry forward. I mean, this is inter-head adjustment, losses under IFHP against other heads. Maximum which is allowed as per section 71, subsection 3A is rupees 2 lakh by itself. But this is only if you go for the Finance Act. If you are in the version 2 scheme, even this will not be allowed. Okay, probably you can capitalize it. Again, all other perquisive benefit, whichever is allowed under the Finance Act, is not allowed over here. Now, again, the same point, just like academic exercise, कि भाई अगर यहाँ पे अपने को interest का benefit नहीं मिल रहा है on housing loan, whether we can capitalize it? Definitely yes, because interest is an integral part of the property. There are judgments of High Court also. कि भाई without loan you couldn't have acquired the property itself. So that interest will form an integral part of that cost of acquisition. You can capitalize it. Okay, so yes, you can capitalize it. You can claim it as a COA when you sell off that particular property. So sorry. It's okay, sir. It's okay, sir. So sorry. Okay, now coming to the second part, again, very important part. So generally, what we are aware of this particular new scheme is that कि by default तो अपना भाई Finance Act रहेगा. Now there are two categories. One is a person who is carrying on business profession. One is who are not carrying business or profession. Now, if you want to go over the Finance Act, you have to exercise that option in a prescribed manner. So there has to be positive assertion from the part of the assessee कि भाई मुझे वो exercise करना पड़ेगा option, that too in a prescribed manner. Now what is that particular manner? As we all know, in case of business profession, you are required to file form 10 IEA. Okay, you have to select that option कि भाई मैं 10 IEA file कर रहा हूँ because मुझे Finance Act में जाना है. Whereas in case of non-business or non-profession, assessees, there just have to take in the ITR itself कि भाई मुझे ये old scheme में जा रहा है, मुझे default scheme, new scheme नहीं चाहिए. So this is how the general framework is. Now we come to certain aspects, intricacies. Now, can an assessee who is carrying on business or profession opt for the old scheme, that is for the Finance Act, directly in the belated ITR if he has filed form 10 IEA within the due date? So my question over here is, say for example, today I am deciding कि भाई मेरे लिए old scheme beneficial है, मुझे ओल्ड स्कीम में जाना है, फॉर दैट आई हैव टू फाइल 10 IEA बिकॉज आई एम अ पर्सन कैरिंग ऑन अ प्रोफेशन। तो मैंने आज का आज फॉर्म 10 IEA फाइल कर दिया। देन जब भी डेट आया, जब भी मैंने एक्चुअल रिटर्न फाइलिंग किया, वो टाइम पे मैंने सॉरी एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम मैंने रिटर्न ही फाइल नहीं किया। I couldn't file my return because of certain circumstances. I have not filed my return within time. Okay, 31st July as the case may, I have not filed my return. Now directly in the belated return, I am filing a belated return. और वहां पे मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि मुझे तो ओल्ड स्कीम में जाना है भाई। Okay, whether I will be allowed कि भाई मैंने ओरिजिनल रिटर्न within time फाइल ही नहीं किया है, and directly मैं belated return फाइल कर रहा हूँ, I am not filing my return within the due date. Whether this, I will be eligible to opt for the Finance Act or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now just let us refer to subsection 6, what it says. Okay, so it says that nothing contained in subsection 1A, that is your default scheme version 2, nothing contained in version 2 scheme will apply where an option is exercised by such person in a prescribed manner. Okay, for that particular assessment year. Okay, so you have to exercise that option here. How should I exercise the option? By filing form 10 IEA. Then the first one, it says that when should I exercise this option? On or before the date specified under section 139(1). So if you read this particular section, it says that exercising that option in a prescribed manner. What is the prescribed manner? File form 10 IEA. By what time? Within the due date specified in subsection 139(1). This particular section does not say कि आपको return within time file करना है. It says that you have to exercise that option in a prescribed manner, that is form 10 IEA, before the due date of filing return of income. So in this particular example, yes, I will be allowed to go with the Finance Act even if I have not filed my original return within time. Okay, but this is in the case of assessee who is carrying on business or profession. Now I have, just research certain things. I refer to the stability instruction of assessment year 21-22. At that point of time, version 1 was in picture. जहां पे भी similar provision था कि अगर आपको new scheme में जाना है, you have to exercise that option by filing form 10 IE. Okay, so there was a CBDT FAQ, or I can say certain kind of instruction which says that if at all you have filed form 10 IEA within the due date, that is before filing before the due date of filing return of income, then even if you file your return belatedly, still you will be allowed to go with the new scheme. I'm talking about version 1. So analogy can be drawn from this particular FAQ even in case of this particular version 2 if you want to go for the Finance Act. Okay.
It's online filing, 10 IE.
Yes, sir.
So today you file and tomorrow you file as normal return.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, now as a reverse angle, I can say opposite angle. I am a person, I am an assessee who is not carrying on any business or profession. Now, can I opt for the old scheme directly in the belated? So यहाँ पे तो मुझे वैसे भी 10 IEA वगैरह कुछ फाइल करना ही नहीं है. मुझे सिर्फ डायरेक्टली रिटर्न में बताना है कि भाई मुझे ये करना है, मुझे ओल्ड स्कीम में जाना है, मुझे फिनेंस एक्ट से जाना है. नाउ मैंने विद इन टाइम मेरा रिटर्न फाइल किया ही नहीं. आई एम फाइलिंग डायरेक्टली इन द मंथ ऑफ नवंबर and I am saying I want to go by Finance Act. I don't want to stick to the default scheme. Whether I will be allowed or not? Yes, definitely you will not be allowed. Why? Because you have to exercise that option when along with the return, and there is a wording to be furnished within the due date specified under 139(1). So here the exercising of the option has to is aligned with your ITR itself, and that particular has to be done before the due date of filing the ITR. So this particular point is very important in cases where there are it happens, practically it happens that कि हम बोलते हैं कि भाई सैलरीड क्लास है, छोटा है, इसका बाद में करेंगे, इसका बाद में करेंगे. ठीक है, इट डज नॉट मैटर, इसका कोई लॉसेस भी नहीं है, इसको नवंबर में फाइलिंग कर देंगे तो भी चलेगा. बट if that particular assessee is more beneficial under the Finance Act, say for example is having ATC, ATD and 24B, okay, तो वहां पे you cannot delay. So this exercise has to be done by you right now of your clients कि भाई कौन से केसेस में अपने को Finance Act में जाना है. Because वो टाइम पे अगर आप बोलोगे कि नहीं मुझे अभी जाना है तो नहीं हो पाएगा. It will not be possible because you will have to do that exercising before the due date of filing return of income, and exercising is along with the return of income itself. Yes, sir.
Very technically,
Yes.
I file a return and exercise option
Yes, sir.
and don't feel any income kicker. I exercise the option and then I feel the reward.
Okay, sir, I agree with your practical approach, but department will say whether this can be considered as genuine omission. 139 subsection 5 says where there is omission or where there is, kind of misstatement, only then you can revise. If you are able to establish your intent कि आपका ये genuine omission था, then I will agree with you. Otherwise, if the department succeeds कि भाई आपका intention ही ये था कि मैं ये structuring करूँ, then you will fail. Because 139.5 का भी एक खुद का वजूद है, which has to be sustained when you go with 139.5. But yes, I can say थोड़ा बहुत आगे पीछे है, you can definitely adopt this approach. Definitely yes. A practical way out.
See, a salaried person or a pensioner, if he is doing this F&O activity,
Yes, sir.
which is an option, and now for income that is for a business income or business loss. So does he, will it be covered under this provision?
Yes. Those things are not at all impacted by this provision.
No, I'm saying that for 10 IDA,
Huh.
he has to file.
Yes, he is in business, definitely. F&O is a business, sir. That cannot be considered as investment, no, sir. F&O means it is a business.
Speculation.
Speculate, definitely business. Intraday, definitely business.
Business head में आ गया ना.
Yes, sir.
Only if you want to go for old scheme, then.
Again, there is a similar analogy which I have drawn from the CBDT instruction for assessment 23-24. Again, for the version 1 scheme, वहाँ पे भी CBDT ने clearly बोला है that you have to exercise this option if you are not carrying on business and profession, and if you want to go to the new scheme, I am talking about version 1, then you have to exercise that along with the return of income, and that too within the due date. After that, will not allow you. Okay, so please do this exercise in cases of, especially in case of small entities. क्योंकि पीछे जाके भारी पड़ेगा वो.
So last year में business and old scheme में.
हाँ.
Current year में.
So ये time business है कि नहीं? You this year everything is under the new. If you want to go there, then you have to file for 10 IE.
Sir, file under new scheme and then revised and under old scheme is.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Precisely what sir asked me. Can an assessee who is carrying on business or profession change his tax scheme in the revised ITR? So here again the question will arise कि भाई मैंने एक particular scheme opt की है, अभी मैं revised ITR में कुछ और करता हूँ. If I refer to CBDT FAQs for ITR 6 in respect of section 115BA, so that is also alternate scheme of taxation. वहां पे भी आपको फॉर्म फाइल करना पड़ता है 10 IA, IB, IC एक्सेट्रा, कि अगर आपको वो न्यू स्कीम में जाना है, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. Okay, so in that particular FAQ, CBDT has allowed it. CBDT बोलता है कि ठीक है, पहले आपने कुछ किया है, अगर रिवाइज रिटर्न में कुछ और करना है तो चलेगा हमको. Provided that if you are opting for the new scheme, then you must have filed that form 10A, 10 IA, IB, IC within the due date. So this is with respect to ITR 6. Okay, I am talking about that particular time जब ये CBDT FAQ आया था, but the scheme is almost the same. Two types of scheme, you have to opt in, you have to file form, everything is same. So now अगर ऐसा litigation point पे आ जाता है आपका केस कि भाई आपने पहले कोई स्कीम लिया था, रिवीजन में आप नया स्कीम ले रहे हो, डिपार्टमेंट बोल रहा है नहीं आप रिवाइज नहीं कर सकते, you can go by this FAQ. This will be, according to me, will be covered by promissory estoppel. The department has given this FAQ, it will be binding on them. The analogy, sir, similar, very similar. How can you say no to that? If the companies are given this benefit, why not me? That will be an argument. Okay, you are violating Article 14 of the Constitution, you are saying no to me.
Because litigation are not allowed. I think I experienced that.
Possible, sir. Possible. But now, this is what CBDT says, but I do not agree with the CBDT. Okay, I will refer to the judgment of Honorable Supreme Court in case of Wipro Limited 2023 judgment. In case of Wipro Limited, what had happened? Wipro had they had that SEZ unit. They had brought forward losses, regular business losses. There was SEZ unit, but there was brought forward business losses. In that particular year, Wipro decided कि भाई हम लोग losses को lapse कर देते हैं. We don't want losses. We will go by 10AA. We have fulfilled all the condition of 10AA. Exemption मिलेगा. We are not required to pay tax. We are fine with forgetting the losses. So उन्होंने पहले एक return ये file किया, जहाँ पे उन्होंने 10AA opt किया. Okay, they are going with one particular scheme. Thereafter, they revised the return saying that हमको अभी exemption नहीं चाहिए 10AA और हमारा brought forward losses है, उसको हम हमारे profit के सामने set off करेंगे और बाकी का losses जो है वो carry forward करेंगे. The matter reached to Supreme Court whether this is permissible or not. Honorable Supreme Court said no. This is not something which can be considered as omission. This is your failure of your tax planning itself. Okay, you cannot consider this as your omission or something which is misstated in some wrong statement made in the ITR. No. Okay, so they have upheld the I can say the crux of section 139(5) कि आप कहीं पे भी use नहीं कर सकते हो. So even this judgment will play a role when you try to shift your scheme from one to another in the revised idea. Again, all these are litigation aspect. I just tried to touch upon all these things. Okay, so now coming to the next part, a very I can say a good amendment that now individuals and HUF who are covered by tax audit, they can verify their ITR by EVC. Earlier that DSC was compulsory, but still for uploading tax audit, still you need DSC. So I don't know, maybe next year they will realize कि भाई ये भी है. Okay, so but yes, for at least for filing the ITRs, sometimes it's happened कि भाई last moment में पता चला कि ये DSC expire हो गया है. At least in that case, all these things will be a savior. Okay, now coming to certain schedules, important schedules where the CBDT or I can say there are errors which are made by the assessees. Now regarding the reporting of directorship, if you are a director in any company, if you are resident and if you are a director, whether in a foreign company or Indian company, anywhere you are mandatorily required to report it. Okay, in this directorship schedule. So you have to report the name of the company, PAN of that particular company, your director identification number, whether that company is a domestic company or a foreign company, it's a listed or unlisted. All these details are required to be mentioned. In case if there is a foreign company, then naturally PAN and DIN are not compulsory. If that foreign company is allotted PAN, then it is required to be reported. Then again, if you are a resident taxpayer, you are required to report everything about every company, whether be it in India or outside India. If you are a non-resident taxpayer, if the assessee is a non-resident and he is a director only of a foreign company, he is a director in a foreign company, and that foreign company has no relation with India. I mean, they are not deriving any income from India, accrued, arised, received, whatever. Okay, in such cases, that particular non-resident is not required to give details about his directorship in that particular foreign company who is not having any income from India. But if it's a non-resident taxpayer, non-resident assessee, he is a director of a foreign company, and that foreign company is having some relation, business relation, and is getting income from India, income accrue, arise, receive, whatever it is. Then in that case, that non-resident director is required to mention details of his directorship, even of that particular foreign company. Unlisted shares, details of unlisted shares, very important. It is not that at the end of the year आपको देखना है. If you are holding any kind of unlisted shares at any point of time during the year, you are required to report it. Okay, it is not that 31st March का सिर्फ देखो. Okay, very important point. You are required to report the name, type of the company, PAN of the company, opening balance, shares acquired during the year, shares transferred during the year. Now they have clarified that if at all you are holding any shares of a foreign listed company, you are not required to report here. Okay, foreign listed company, it is possible. Many Indians are working in Google, etc., where they are getting ESOP वगैरह. Okay, at least in this schedule, they are not required to report it. At least in this schedule. Okay. Now, in case of a delisted company, if the PAN is not available, you can just enter this particular, alphanumeric code which they have given. Now, what is the value? What will be the value of that particular shares? If you have acquired it by your own, then the cost of acquisition you report it. If you are acquired by any mode which is specified in under section 49 subsection 1, that is your gift, will, any kind of corporate action, etc., then the cost of the previous owner can be inserted, or you may enter 0 in case of gift or in case of will, etc. Okay. They have clarified that this particular details which you are filling in this particular schedule, unlisted shares, it will not be linked with their computation. It will not be used for the purpose of computing any kind of capital gain tax. This clarification they have made over here. Another important point, even if these unlisted shares are held as stock in trade, so there are many firms who are in investment trading. Agar unke paas, if they are holding this kind of unlisted share, even as the stock in trade, not investment, still they are required to report it over here. Sorry, sir. Definitely, sir. No. Unlisted, sir. Unlisted. Sir. No, sir. According to me, it will be for everyone. Unlisted company, it will even include private limited company. Yes. Be it public, private, everything. They have stated unlisted. Sorry, sir. Definitely, but yes. So they are saying apart from unlisted. Sorry, apart from this, in my opinion, even private companies requirement are required to be reported. Now they have specifically specified that shares held of a cooperative bank, okay, or cooperative society, those are not required to be reported. They have specifically stated जो companies act के अंदर जिसका incorporation हुआ है, okay, उसका ही reporting यहाँ पे करो, बाकी कोई किसी का नहीं. Okay, so cooperative societies, cooperative bank का shares अगर आपके पास है, that is not required to be reported. Schedule AL, again asset liability schedule required to be filled up if your total income is exceeding rupees 50 lakh in case of ITR 2 and 3. Here the assets and liabilities, the value has to be at the end of the year. यहाँ पे any point of time during the year नहीं है. पहले वाले schedule में it was any point of time. Okay, so here only 31st March आपको देखना है. Okay, in case if the assessee is a non-resident or a resident but not a resident, then this particular schedule will be restricted only for those assets which are located in India. Not foreign assets are not required to be reported, at least in this schedule. Yes, sir, it will be applicable for every item. Yes. Then this particular reporting requirement will be over and above schedule FA. So FA अगर कोई foreign asset है, okay, तो schedule FA में तो आपको लिखना ही है, यहाँ पे भी लिखना पड़ेगा. Okay, so it has to be reported at both the places. Now, what will be the amount which you will report? It will be the actual cost price, or if it is a previous owner, then previous owner का जो भी cost है, okay, they have specifically mentioned. If at all that asset is something which is of a personal asset, और उसके related अगर आपने wealth tax का return भरा है, उसमें कोई value disclose की है उसकी, under the wealth tax return, then even that can be reported over here. So these all things are given in the instructions to the ITR which is issued by the CBDT. Yes, sir. Sir, if you refer to the instruction module, they have given a particular formula and a wide explanation कि भाई आपको contract का sum assured, the amount of premium paid, उसका कुछ formula दिया हुआ है, that is required to be reported. But that particular explanation they have detailed, in that particular CBDT instruction. वहां पे मिल जाएगा. That's a 3-4 paragraphs they have given as to how will you report the amount of insurance contract.
For jewelry, if no wealth return was filed earlier, would the cost or what is it?
Sir, yes, they have allowed it. Yes. Only if cost is not there, then you may go by this.
What about that inherited jewelry? Of the acquired during, marriage stamps, earlier marriage stamps.
Yes, they have specifically stated that it will be cost of previous owner.
Jewelry gifted to the time of marriage.
Yes.
Long 3 decades ago. How to quantify?
Sir, basically, if you are having cost, you can report it. It has nothing to do with the computation, first of all. Secondly, if you are not able to determine in any way, okay, then you can go by the approximate value of that particular jewelry. Because here they have specifically mentioned, in case of, if you read this, they have specifically stated that the value may be estimated at the circle rate or bullion rate. If you read this third last line. The value may be estimated at the circle rate or bullion rate as the case may be on the date of acquisition by the assessee.
Even painting also you can.
Yes. This CBDT instruction to the ITR are very elaborative. They're running in 300 pages. They have covered many things. But the thing is, there are so much things, other things we have that we will not have that time to go through all these things. But to answer your question, the CBDT has answered your question. And at least they have stated कि भाई ये करना है आपको.
Circle.
आपका, yeah, that will be. In case of bullion, it will be the regulated bullion rate. Schedule FA, again, foreign asset disclosure, very important schedule. There are line of items which are listed in this particular schedule, which are required to be reported. Okay, and your saving account, your any kind of equity investment, any kind of insurance contract, immovable properties, etc. Okay, very important schedule. I'm not going deeper into this schedule, but there are certain legal implications regarding this particular schedule, which we'll be discussing. Sir, welcome. Yes, answered. The very first line. The schedule will not be filled up if you are non-resident or not ordinary resident or non-resident. Only for R and R resident or ordinary resident, it is required to be filled up. Okay, if you're resident, yes, you're required to be report in this particular schedule. Now, what is the type of your ownership? You can be a legal owner, you can be a beneficial owner, or you can even be a beneficiary by yourself. Okay, of that particular foreign asset. Okay, any of these three, if you are, then you are required to report it. Even if you are a beneficiary of some foreign asset, you are required to report it. Okay, details are required even if the specified asset is held even for a single day. Very important. Again, this is not at the end of the year. This is at any point of time during the year. Again, a very tedious exercise. Yes, sir? Yes. So again, this requirement is over and above schedule AL. Okay, AL में तो आपको report करना ही है, यहाँ पे भी करना है. Then there is a conversion rate they have given. TTBR of foreign currency will be exchange rate as adopted by the SBI.
Sir, for non-resident, so AL is not applicable. Non-resident, is it different?
Sorry, sir. No, FA. This is FA.
It's not applicable. Non-resident.
Up to 31st December only you have to take.
Sorry, sir.
Up to 31st December calendar year.
Yes. Earlier.
Yes.
Earlier they had used the word accounting here.
Accounting year. Now you have to.
And then there were three different categories in the CBDT instruction ki accounting year kya hai. In case where a country where the accounting year is from April to March, it will be that. In case some other country, it will be that. So there are a lot of confusion. Okay, now they have entered ki by financial year.
No, 31st December you have to disclose the asset, but income you have to consider for up to March.
Sir, I will have to get back. There was 2 years earlier, 2 years back, they had changed this because there was a lot of confusion between because some countries were following,
Last year,
yeah.
Last year it was 31st December.
Correct.
Income, dividend, interest, everything you have to account up to
March.
But disclosure of
Possible.
assets will be applicable.
Possible. Yes.
What happened last year?
That is the most
One is
confusion.
reported on 31st December in a schedule.
Correct.
But what about AL schedule? There will be again 31st.
Again 31st.
So there will be two separate values.
Yeah, right. Correct. And there is still this confusion is there, definitely. But they have given, 3-4 paragraph merely on what is the definition of the accounting year which they have used in this particular schedule, in the CBDT instruction. Yes, I agree. But I'll get back, sir. Definitely.
So for non-resident, FA is not applicable. And AL.
Yes. Now, coming to dividend, I think we had even discussed this last year. That dividend income generally it is covered by section 56(2) clause 1. Okay, dividend income है आपको उसको other sources में लेके जाना है. But there are cases where if I am an investor, my business activity itself is investing or I can say trading. वहाँ पे it is very much possible for me to classify my dividend income as my business income. Okay, if I am a salaried, if I am not into business and profession of trading in shares and securities, मैं उसको IFOS में लेके जाऊंगा. But what if I am dealing in that particular area only? So there are decisions which supports this view. Yes, instead of classifying it as your IFOS, the dividend income as your IFOS, you can stick to PGBP. Okay, the benefit was that the IFOS में the deduction which you get against the income will be a very confined amount. Whereas under PGBP, you can get a good amount of deduction. So here now in the ITR, last year only they made this particular change. पहले ऐसा नहीं था, लास्ट ईयर से आया है that they have inserted this specific line item of dividend in IFOS schedule itself. पहले नहीं था. Okay, so now ITR says कि dividend income है तो यहीं पे डालो, but now it is your call whether you have to classify it as your PGBP or IFOS. Again, I'll say the forms will not override the law. Okay, you can go by the judicial pronouncements. Now, if we have to go to the amendment which was made in section 57, that is for deduction in respect of the dividend income. A very important amendment. It says that against your dividend income, only interest expenditure will be allowed as deduction, nothing else. And that too, second part, that interest action, the amount of deduction will be restricted to 20% of the dividend income. This is something very absurd. Say for example, I have borrowed 1 lakh rupees at 10% interest. Okay, 1 लाख रुपया लिया मैंने एक पर्टिकुलर लिस्टेड कंपनी में डाल दिया उसको वहां पे. Now 10% interest I am paying, that is 10,000 rupees I am paying as my interest cost. अभी वो कंपनी से मुझे डिविडेंड आया सिर्फ 1,000 रुपए का. नेचुरली द डिविडेंड इज जनरली लो. Okay, 1,000 रुपया आया सिर्फ मुझे वहां से डिविडेंड. This section says your deduction will be restricted to 20% of the dividend income, 200 रुपया. Against 10,000, there is a direct excess. I am able to prove the direct excess कि 1 लाख उठा के मैंने यहाँ पे डाला है, 10,000 मेरा कॉस्ट है, पर मुझे डिडक्शन मिल रहा है 200 रुपए का. What about the balance amount? If at all, if I am into business and profession, I will claim that 9,800 as my PGBP expense, 37. That is allowed because there are several judicial pronouncements which says that ultimately if you are carrying on a business, everything is your business. It is only for the purpose of Income Tax Act you classify it into your 5 heads. Otherwise, everything is business. So once if there is something which is excluded by virtue of only for the purpose of Income Tax Act, that does not mean you have a business expenditure या business income नहीं है. Okay, so in my opinion, if that is not allowed under IFOS, I can claim at least under 37. But this will be the case where I am carrying on that business profession. If I am not carrying on that, then though I don't think so you will get anything more than 200 rupees.
Sir, good question. If I have received a short-term capital also as well as dividend, then I will get full deductions. The same.
Again, sir, in that case, department will argue that 14A वाला concept कि भाई हमको उसको भी हम बांटेंगे. Okay, so that is something which is subject matter of the litigation. कि आपका own fund में से कितना गया, borrowed fund में से कितना गया, then they will take a reverse view. बोले कि आपने own fund डाला है. 14A में हम बोलते थे कि नहीं हमने borrowed fund डाला हुआ है. Whatever, you know, the view will be reversed now. 14A के लिए हम बोलते थे कि own fund से गया हुआ है. यहाँ पे हम बोल रहे हैं borrowed fund से गया है. Department will take a reverse view now. कि नहीं यहाँ पे आपने own fund use किया, borrowed fund use ही नहीं किया, हम आपको deduction नहीं देंगे. Now, this is a common FAQ which was issued with respect to ASTS. It is most likely कि भाई ASTS 26 match नहीं होते. Okay, so this is an FAQ which says that try to reconcile it. At the end अगर कुछ नहीं हुआ तो भाई 26 years पकड़ के चलो. Okay, so this is again a CP. This is on the website. This is not my FAQ. Now, very important. That is failure to disclose foreign asset in Schedule FA. We have just discussed that you are required to report your foreign assets in Schedule FA, irrespective of the period of holding. एक दिन भी अगर आपने foreign asset लिया है, तो उसको foreign asset schedule में disclose करना है आपको. It's not that 31st March का जो asset है उसको disclose करना है any point of time during the year. Now we are coming out of the Income Tax Act. We are going to the Black Monies Act. Section 43. It says that in case of a resident and an ordinary resident, only applicable to resident and ordinary resident, okay, who have failed to furnish the details of their foreign asset in the ITR, who have failed to furnish any, the details in the ITR, or if they have furnished any inaccurate particulars in the ITR, that is in Schedule FA, then a penalty of rupees 10 lakh may be imposed by the assessing officer. First of all, it is applicable only in case of resident or ordinary resident. It will be applicable in case where you are not reporting or you are misreporting anything in Schedule FA, either non-disclosure or misdisclosure. Thirdly, there is no discretion as to the quantum of penalty. Quantum will be 10 lakh. There is a discretion कि भाई penalty लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा वो AO decide करेगा. And we all know what AO decides. Okay, so there is no discretion with respect to the quantum. 10 lakh तो लगना ही है, अगर लगाया तो, नहीं लगाया तो अच्छा. Now there is an exception in this particular section itself. It says that कि अगर आपका saving bank account है, foreign account है, and the overall balance is only rupees up to 5 lakh rupees, then at least this penalty नहीं लगेगा. Okay, overall foreign का जो balance है आपका saving account में वहाँ पे, if it is not exceeding rupees INR 5 lakh, then at least this penalty will not apply. Now, with the background of this particular provision, let us go to certain judicial pronouncements. This 23 judgment, August 23. Assess is an individual. She has certain foreign asset. She failed to report it in the schedule FA. FA में report नहीं किया. But उस asset में से जो income आई थी, there was an investment in financial instruments. उस financial instrument में से जो income आई थी, उसने वो report किया था, उसके ऊपर tax भरा था. Now, AO again impose penalty, section 43 black money act. आपने report नहीं किया है, मैं penalty लगाऊंगा, 10 लाख रुपए का penalty लगाया. Matter went to the tribunal. Tribunal के पास assessee ने बोला कि by it was completely unintentional. Most of the people do not realize that there are implications outside income tax act. Okay, so naturally it is unintentional. Okay, assessee says कि भाई मैंने ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरा undisclosed asset है, उसके में से जो income आया that I have reported in my ITR, I have paid tax on it. It's not something which I'm hiding. No. Okay, so these are the arguments of the assessee. Now what tribunal said? Tribunal says yes, I accept कि आपका unintentional है. I accept कि this is not something which is undisclosed. Definitely it is disclosed. But tribunal is taking a strict view of section 43. It says that 43 does not deal कि भाई आपका undisclosed asset है या disclosed asset है. It just deals with a case where you are not reported or misreported. And here you are not reported. The tribunal has upheld the penalty of rupees 10 lakh in that particular case. I feel the pulse rate are going high now because according to me, I don't think in many cases assessee have not reported this. Because nowadays we have IT engineers who are settled outside, they are getting SOP outside. Okay, if they are required to file return here, and if they are not reporting it, then there is a latakti talwar yahan pe. But I have some relief. The second judgment again, Bombay Tribunal 23 ka judgment. Here the assessee is a company. Same thing, there was foreign asset, investment किया था, ITR में दिखाया नहीं. Argument of the assessee was it was unintentional. Assessee said कि भाई मेरा audit हुआ है, मैं company हूँ, मेरे balance sheet में वो asset दिख रहा है, और क्या करूँ मैं? मैंने ITR में balance sheet में भी दिखाया, even in the ITR BS schedule में दिखाया है, schedule FA में नहीं दिखाया, बस. यहाँ पे the tribunal took a lenient view, saying that ultimately schedule FA का intention क्या था? कि इंटेंशन ये था कि भाई जो एसएससी हु आर नॉट अदरवाइज रिक्वायर्ड टू रिपोर्ट एनीथिंग एनीवेयर एल्स, से फॉर एग्जांपल इंडिविजुअल एचएससी एचयूएफ वगैरह, उनका अगर कोई फॉरेन एसेट है, वो सबका डिस्क्लोजर का डेटा एक्यूमुलेट करने के लिए शेड्यूल लाया गया. Okay, that assessee, that company has disclosed it in the balance sheet. That balance sheet is audited by a chartered accountant. That assessee has disclosed that foreign asset in schedule BS, that is your balance sheet schedule. Only in FA has not reported it. So here there is a liberal interpretation. They have stated that ऐसी सब चीजों के लिए penalty नहीं लगना चाहिए. Okay, so favorable view. Now when we go to the jurisprudence, what happens? If there are two conflicting views as per Supreme Court judgment in case of vegetable product, the case which is favoring the assessee should be adopted. So in your case, अगर कुछ ऐसा आता है, you will go by the favorable judgment. Okay, if there are conflicting judgment, the view in favor of assessee has to be upheld. Secondly, the first decision is of 9th August 2023. This particular decision, second decision, is of 29th August 2023. As per the law of jurisprudence, the judgment at the later part has to be followed. Okay, so fortunately we have this judgment. Bhaskaran sir was there in this particular bench. Yes, he has taken a good view. So at least, but yeah, from this year at least you will realize ki bhai, what is the implication of not reporting something in schedule FA. It's very important to bring this to the notice of the assessees, जो कभी-कभी details भी शायद नहीं देते. Yes, sir.
Now the entire foreign account and all foreign investment is of husband and it is from his too. But he has added wife's name everywhere. So we are out of abundance precaution in wife's return also mentioning this. So should we mention or?
Sir, करो ना mention. Correct करो. Because they specifically said beneficiary, legal owner, beneficial owner, anyone.
But husband has made out of his own income. Source of income is husband, but wife is only for sentimental purpose, it was that.
Yes, sir.
For purpose of convenience.
Purpose of convenience is that.
Sir is speaking out facts.
No, I received the
No.
investigation department also, I received the notice also.
Yes, sir.
I represented before the invested that I given a declaration that entire income is disclosed in the.
Yes,
There
yes.
is no problem.
There is Bombay High Court judgment now that in case of husband and wife, अगर husband ने पूरा investment किया है, wife को कुछ मत करो भाई, उसको safe रखो.
Yes.
But for the purpose of disclosure, you may report.
It becomes very.
Yes, it is tedious class. Yes. Now, a recent judgment on derivative transaction. What? Yes. In order to avoid litigation, you can. If you want to, yeah.
Is there any monetary limit for disclosure? Very small amount of shares. So if you need to buy shares of $100, I think you can $10.
सीमा मेहता मैडम का कॉल आया था परसों, बोला 200 रुपया है, मैं बोला करो डिस्क्लोज. 10 लाख से अच्छा है 200 रुपये दिखाना.
Holding a income property abroad, but that property was completely given by the bank. You was thrown out and the original was taken out by the bank. Still you have to show the value.
Sir, this particular schedule says any time of the year, if you are owner, beneficial owner.
You see that 3 years, I mean, you got a owner because the property is taken out.
So whether the title or the property is gone, is it your property now?
It's in liquidation, so they are insolvent.
So title has been vanished now. There is no, then there is no, it's not his asset, no.
But at the end of the financial year, asset is not there, it's already sold.
Still you are required to report. That is what I'm saying.
I bought some investment for shares and it's company there's no value of that investment.
Oh. It's a difficult task then.
There should be cited off.
At least disclose the cost. At least disclose the cost. Cost होगा ही ना, आपने acquire किया है. Cost डाल दो. Definitely, but prudent to disclose at least cost. Okay, now going ahead.
Sir, in case of RSU given to the employees, so they have some RSU that in the end of the year, then that has to be.
Yes. Required to be disclosed. Yes, if it's a foreign asset, definitely yes. Time number, sorry, sir. Okay, so you are saying that there is an assessing who is a foreign asset but is not even having PAN number. I think 139. I think there is in 139 there is a proviso which says that if at all you are having any foreign asset, you are required to file return of income. I think there is one proviso in that. Okay, now going ahead, derivative transaction. So here is the case where the assessee has dealt in derivatives. Uska turnover, the calculation of turnover and derivative itself is a litigation. Okay, you have to refer to para 5.14 of the guidance note. Okay, so the assessee has said here, my turnover is 42,61,000. He has applied directly 8% on that. Is going by presumptive taxation. Derivatives पे presumptive taxation apply किया, 8% profit दिखाया 3.5 लाख और बोला कि मेरा रिटर्न फाइल हो गया. ITO के पास बोला, ITO बोला कि मेरे हिसाब से टर्नओवर आपका जा रहा है 5.5 करोड़, 5 crore 25 lakh. I don't know what report he was having, but in the judgment also it is written that based on some report, he was saying that आपका turnover is 5.24 crores. He applied 8%, but on 5.2 crores, 24 crores. Then matter is to the CIT appeal. CIT appeal के पास assessee ने बोला कि भाई ये 5.2 crore तू लाया कहाँ से, वो तो पता पहले. How have you arrived to that turnover figure? AO was not able to establish that. CIT will बोलता है ठीक है, अगर AO is not able to establish, your turnover will be 42 lakhs, but I will apply profit rate of 50%. ट्रिब्यूनल के पास आए, ट्रिब्यूनल ने बोला कि भाई ये क्या हो रहा है. neither the AO is able to establish कि 5.24 कहाँ से आया है और CITP ने किस basis पे 50% लिया है. There is no basis to that. There is one line which is very important. The line is the last line. Profit rate of 8% as provided in the statute was liable to be accepted. Very important line. From a legal perspective, was liable. The judgment, if it is using this line now, if it is liable to be accepted, in any other case, I'll always plead that you are bound by this 8%. Even if you are able to establish कि मेरा 8% ज़्यादा profit है. This is a matter of litigation. But this line of this particular judgment will definitely help me because it will bound the department with this 8% rate. Okay, this wording is very important for me at least. Okay.
But if there is a loss, then he has to go for a tax audit.
Yes. If you want to carry forward that loss, yes.
That is the better option.
Yes, yes. Now this is another case law of Honorable Himachal Pradesh High Court. A very good case law. I just run through it. So generally what happens is whenever you want to claim a deduction under section 80, IB, IC, whatever. Okay, what you are required to do is you have to file certain forms within the due date. If you are not able to file a particular form within the due date, you will not get the deduction. There are High Court judgments which says that you are required to file a return of income as well as that form within the due date. If you are not filing it, you will not be allowed this 80, AB, IC, etc. deductions. Okay, now this Honorable High Court decision is something which is in the favor of assessee. They have taken a lenient view that by merely because of a procedural defect, this claim should not be disallowed to the assessee. Okay, very important because there are conflicting judgment. This judgment is important now. Okay, you can always refer. Okay, now just one more aspect which I forgot to explain in this. Now यहाँ पे हमने अच्छा वो तो हो गया. So यहाँ पे what we concluded is that if you are not able, if you are misreporting or if you are not reporting in the ITR, the foreign asset, then you may be subjected to penalty. But please read the first line. Where resident and ordinary resident having furnished ITR. So this penalty will be applicable only when you are filing your ITR and you are not disclosing or misreporting. So if there is a assessee जिसने ITR ही file नहीं किया है, at least I can save him from this penalty. Yes. So yes. So here, if you are not filing ITR, then this section, according to me, will not be applicable. You know, there is a proverb in Marathi, "Nirlajja sada sukhi." This is the exact. If you are nirlajja, then at least this penalty will not be applicable to you.
Sir, ITR 148, ITR. Wife is having the foreign income and she is not having the Indian income.
करो सर करो.
There is no problem.
करो ना, मैं वही तो बोला that she is required to file return of income as per 139 subsection 1. There is a proviso. I don't remember. Okay, now just running ahead now, since we are short of time. In the tax audit report, if clause number 4, you are required to give the registration number under indirect taxes. In 2017, GST was introduced. They have now inserted this GST by GST number 2. Even the CPDT was unsure 6 साल GST चलेगा कि नहीं. Okay, finally they have now inserted कि you have to give your GST. We used to report the GST number in VAT column. Okay, same way even 44 ADA, whether the assessee has opted for presumptive taxation in clause number 12. 44 ADA is there since last 6 years. It was inserted in form 3CB now. Clause 18 we already discussed regarding the depreciation. You have to add to the WDV that is required to be reported. Clause number 21 again very important. That is the explanation to section 37 and the proviso. कि भाई अगर आपने कोई भी खर्चा किया है which is in the nature of offence or prohibited by law, then that type of expenses will be disallowed. Okay, there was explanation inserted in Finance Act 22 which broadened this particular area. कि भाई what all will be covered under this particular category of prohibited by law or anything which you pay by in the nature of penalty. Please remember, as a tax auditor, the very first one, you are required to report any expenditure for any purpose which is an offence or is prohibited by law, or expenditure by way of any penalty or fine or violation of any law enacted in India or outside India. So as a tax auditor, you are supposed to know कि भाई आपके client ने foreign tax laws का violation किया है कि नहीं. Okay, very important point. As a tax auditor, you are expected to know कि भाई foreign law का violation हुआ है नहीं, उसके लिए कोई खर्चा हुआ है कि नहीं, अगर हुआ है तो यहाँ पे report करो. Same way, compounding fees, whether paid in India or outside India, वो भी आपको यहाँ पे report करनी है. And third point is, consequent to the decision of Honorable Supreme Court in case of that medical industry जहाँ पे freebies देते थे pharma company to the doctors. Okay, it was held that such freebies are not allowed to be accepted by the doctors as per their code of conduct. So this explanation is inserted that any assessee who is paying any kind of amount to any kind of professional who are covered by code of conduct, and if the code of conduct is not permitting such acceptance of such freebies, then that freebie which is paid by the assessee to such professional will not be allowed. Okay, so even this is required to be reported here.
सिग्नल जंपिंग वजह तो वो भी प्रोफेसर तो डिबंक तो जंपिंग
Sorry, sir.
दुबई में जैसे रेड सिग्नल होता है जंपिंग कर दिया चलान कर दिया उसका
अगर आपने चलन पे किया है by the from the company's account, yes. Okay, here the auditor is not required to express his opinion as to disallowance or allowance. You are required to report that amount. Okay, you are not required to make a judgment कि भाई वो allow होना चाहिए नहीं होना चाहिए. However, ICAI guidance note itself says that you have to distinguish your penalty with the whatever is compensatory nature. So if your amount which you are paid is something which is in compensatory in nature, then that is not required to be reported. Okay, whatever is penal in nature, that is required to be reported. So there are various case laws on this. I'm not elaborating more on that. TDS 234E का जो fees बनते हो, that is not covered under this particular section. Okay, that is specifically given by the ICAI themselves. The 200 rupees per day वाला जो fees है, okay, उसको यहाँ पे include मत करो. That will not be disallowed. That is written. That is what is written in the guidance note. Again, clause 22. I am not going to comment anything. It is up to you. MSME. Okay. So I think with this, I'll conclude my today's presentation. Thank you so much for the patient. Thank you so much.
Small business income would require the filing of business return. Salaried person earning some brokerage income.
Please wait for order and please.
Please, some brokerage income. Please wait. So it is the applicable ITR with salaried person or for business.
Hey, if he's in business, definitely some business or ITR will come. Yes. Unless you show it in IFOS and just that is not law, sir. As per law, yes.
Thank you, Shashank. Dear friend, I feel honored and privileged to get to propose a vote of thanks to our eminent speaker, Sri Shashank Mehta. Right? Sri Shashank Mehta has enlightened everything in respect to amendments in ITR for the financial year 23-24 respect to assessment year 24-25. I need to mention my deepest sense of appreciation. शशांक के लिए बस मैं इतना ही कहना चाहूंगा, ये जहां जाएगा चांदनी फैलाएगा. Thank you, शशांक जी. And I also thanks to our participant members जो इतनी संख्या में यहाँ पर हैं. Last but not the least, I also thank to hotel staff member. One announcement please. 29th को अपना there is a 29th June blood donation camp and medical camp. All are requested to come in large for benefit of our society, needy person,
Family and friends.
with family and friend to donate the blood as well as check your health. Thank you.
Is that for you?
It is a Continental.
But one more announcement.
One more.
Just hold on. On 30th of June, on the occasion of CA Day, WIRC have organized a run as well as walk. You can do whatever you feel like. Again, you know, right? Health is wealth. So please, everybody participate, register. The link has already been sent to everybody. So let us see all in large numbers. And another announcement, the food arrangements are outside. Those who want to eat giant food, please only those people go to the giant counter, because otherwise those people are not getting the food. Many times it happens. Those who eat regular veg food, please take from the other counter, and you are allowed to come here and sit. So please, you can do that. Thank you. Thank you.